aid is needed to help Sudan's refugee crisis. Around 1 million people have been displaced after intense fighting broke out a month ago.
Fighting broke out in Sudan in mid-April. We've seen it on the streets and in the sky.
During evacuation of the American embassy in Sudan.
Once, Sudan was a nation of great promise, known for its rich history and the kindness of its people. It stood at a crossroads of cultures, where the Nile River nourished ancient civilizations and vibrant communities. The Sudanese people have always held a deep pride in their land, a place of sprawling deserts, fertile valleys, and a spirit of resilience that has endured through centuries. But today, that pride is overshadowed by a deep and unending sorrow. The sounds of daily life have been replaced by the echoes of gunfire and the cries of those who have lost everything. This is a nation that is bleeding, torn apart by a war that seems to have no end in sight. The conflict has turned bustling cities into ghost towns, where buildings stand as hollowed-out shells and streets are littered with the debris of shattered lives. Families who once gathered for meals and celebrations are now scattered, desperately searching for safety. The social fabric that held communities together for generations is unraveling thread by thread. Neighbors are pitted against neighbors, and trust has become a luxury few can afford. The war is not just destroying buildings and infrastructure, it is destroying the very soul of Sudan, leaving behind a legacy of trauma and division that will take many years to heal. For the people of Sudan, the dream of a peaceful and prosperous future has turned into a daily nightmare. Millions have been forced to flee their homes, carrying nothing but the clothes on their backs and the painful memories of what they have lost. They are now refugees in their own country or in neighboring lands, depending on the charity of others to survive. The war has stolen their past and their present, and it threatens to erase their future. The promise that Sudan once held has been buried under the weight of a senseless conflict, leaving its people to wonder if peace will ever return to their beloved homeland. This tragedy is not a distant problem. It is a human crisis that touches everyone. The stories of suffering coming out of Sudan are a stark reminder of the cost of war, where ordinary people pay the highest price. The international community watches as a once proud nation descends further into chaos, its potential squandered with every bullet fired and every life lost. The world must not look away from Sudan's agony. Understanding the roots of this conflict, especially the role that the nation's own resources play in fueling it, is the first step toward helping its people reclaim their future from the grip of violence. The war in Sudan is a brutal power struggle between two main groups. On one side is the Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF, which is the country's official national army. On the other side is the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, a powerful paramilitary group that grew out of the infamous Janjaweed militias. These two forces were once allies who worked together to overthrow a previous dictator. But their alliance crumbled as they vied for control over the country and its vast resources. Now, they are locked in a deadly fight for supremacy, and neither side is willing to back down, no matter the cost to the people they claim to protect. At the heart of this conflict lies one of Sudan's most valuable resources, gold. The country sits on vast reserves of this precious metal, which could be used to build schools, hospitals, and a better future for its citizens. Instead, gold has become the fuel that keeps the engine of war running. The RSF, in particular, controls many of the most important gold mining areas in regions like Darfur. This gives them a steady and massive source of income. They use the money from selling this gold to buy weapons, ammunition, and other military supplies, allowing them to continue their fight against the national army. The battle for Sudan has become a battle for its gold. The SAF also tries to control mining sites and trade routes to cut off the RSF's funding, but the paramilitary group has proven to be very effective at maintaining its grip on this lucrative trade. The gold provides the RSF with a level of financial independence that makes it difficult for outside powers to pressure them into peace talks. As long as they can dig gold from the ground and sell it on the international market, they have the means to sustain their military campaign indefinitely, turning a political struggle into a prolonged and devastating war of attrition. This direct link between gold and warfare means that the conflict is not just about political power, it is also a business. The leaders of the warring factions are getting rich while their country burns. For them, peace would mean losing control over the gold mines and the immense wealth they generate. This creates a powerful incentive to keep fighting, regardless of the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding around them. The country's natural blessing has been twisted into a curse, financing the very violence that is tearing Sudan apart from the inside out and making a lasting peace seem more and more distant. Sudan is one of Africa's largest gold producers, with rich deposits hidden beneath its soil. This incredible natural wealth should be a source of prosperity for the entire nation, funding development and improving the lives of its 45 million people. However, the reality is the complete opposite. The vast majority of Sudanese citizens live in poverty, struggling every day just to find food and clean water. The gold is extracted from their land, but the profits rarely reach them. Instead, the wealth is siphoned off by warlords, corrupt officials, and foreign entities, leaving the local communities with nothing but poisoned land and broken dreams. The conditions in the artisanal gold mines, where most of the digging happens, are horrific. These are not modern, regulated operations. They are often just crude pits, dug into the earth with basic tools. The work is dangerous and backbreaking, performed under the scorching Sudanese sun. Tragically, many of the workers are not there by choice. Desperate families, pushed to the brink by war and poverty, are forced to send their children and even the elderly to work in these mines. They risk their lives every day, breathing in toxic mercury fumes used to separate the gold from the ore. For these vulnerable workers, the mines are a death trap. Cave-ins are common, burying people alive in an instant. The long-term health effects of mercury poisoning are devastating, leading to severe neurological damage and other life-threatening illnesses. Yet, for a few grams of gold, they endure these risks. The children who should be in school, learning and playing, are instead robbed of their childhood, their small bodies forced to perform grueling labor that even adults would find difficult. Their future is sacrificed for a treasure that will never benefit them or their families, perpetuating a cycle of poverty and suffering. The tragic irony is that the harder these people work, the more they fuel the war that oppresses them. The gold they dig with their bare hands is sold by the RSF and other armed groups to finance the purchase of more guns and bullets. This means the very resource that could lift Sudan out of poverty is being used to deepen its misery. The country's immense wealth has become a magnet for exploitation, attracting those who see it not as a tool for progress, but as an opportunity for personal gain, no matter how much blood is spilled in the process. The process of getting Sudan's gold from the mines to the global market is, honestly, a shadowy operation built on smuggling and secrecy. It starts in the remote, RSF-controlled mining camps in places like Darfur. After the gold is dug up and crudely processed, it is gathered by armed fighters. Instead of being declared to the Sudanese central bank, which would actually benefit the state, the gold is prepared for a secret journey. It is often melted into small, nondescript bars or hidden among other goods to avoid detection. The smugglers are well organized and operate with the protection of the very forces tearing the country apart. From the mines, the gold is smuggled across Sudan's porous borders into neighboring countries. Nations like Chad, Libya, and the Central African Republic serve as key transit points. Once the gold crosses the border, its Sudanese origin begins to fade. It is often mixed with locally mined gold or given false documents that claim it originated in that transit country. This step is crucial for laundering the gold, as it makes it appear legitimate. By the time it is ready for export, it is nearly impossible to trace it back to the conflict zones of Sudan, effectively washing the blood from the precious metal. The primary destination for this laundered gold is the United Arab Emirates, specifically the bustling gold markets of Dubai. The UAE has become a major global hub for the gold trade, attracting sellers from all over Africa. Smugglers find it easy to sell their gold there, often with few questions asked about its true origin. Once in Dubai, the gold is melted down again and mixed with gold from countless other sources. It is then stamped and sold to international buyers, including major refiners and jewelry companies around the world, as legitimate UAE origin gold. This smuggling network is the financial lifeline of the RSF. It allows them to transform a natural resource dug from Sudanese soil into hard cash, which is then used to fund their war machine. The journey of blood gold is a clear example of how global markets can indirectly finance conflict. The demand for gold in wealthy countries, combined with weak regulations and a lack of transparency in hubs like Dubai, creates the perfect environment for warlords to profit from violence. Every ounce of smuggled gold that is sold represents more money for guns, more fighting, and more suffering for the people of Sudan. The United Arab Emirates plays a central role in keeping Sudan's war funded. Dubai's gold market is one of the biggest in the world, and it has become the top destination for gold smuggled out of Sudan and other conflict zones in Africa. Reports have shown a massive increase in gold imports to the UAE from Sudan and its neighbours since the war began. This suggests that rather than slowing down, the trade in conflict gold is booming. The UAE's lax regulations and position as a global trade hub make it an attractive place for the RSF to sell its gold and turn it into cash for weapons. Other international players are also involved, adding more layers to this complex web. The Wagner Group, a Russian mercenary organization with close ties to the Kremlin, has been deeply involved in Sudan's gold sector for years. They have provided military support and training to the RSF in exchange for access to gold mines. This partnership gives Russia both a strategic foothold in Africa and a way to circumvent international sanctions by acquiring gold. The involvement of groups like Wagner further complicates the conflict, turning a local power struggle into a proxy battleground for global powers. The journey of Sudan's blood gold does not end in Dubai. Major gold refining centers, particularly Switzerland, are the next stop. Switzerland is home to some of the world's largest gold refineries, which process a huge portion of the global gold supply. These refineries import large quantities of gold from the UAE. Because the gold's origin has been obscured, Swiss companies may be unknowingly refining conflict gold from Sudan and selling it to banks, electronics manufacturers, and jewelry stores worldwide. This means that a wedding ring or a component in a smartphone could contain traces of gold that funded a brutal war. This global supply chain highlights a massive failure in international accountability. While many countries have laws against trading in conflict minerals, these rules are often easy to bypass. The complex process of smuggling, laundering, and mixing gold makes it extremely difficult for companies and consumers to know if their gold is ethically sourced. The global appetite for gold creates a powerful demand that warlords are all too happy to supply. As long as the international market provides a place to sell this blood gold, the cycle of violence in Sudan will be incredibly difficult to break. The war in Sudan is so difficult to stop primarily because the fighting is profitable for the leaders of the warring factions. Both the SAF and the RSF have access to economic resources that allow them to sustain their military operations without needing to rely on the state's budget. For the RSF, the gold mines are a private bank account that never runs dry. As long as they control these mines and can sell the gold on the international market, they have a constant flow of cash. This money allows them to pay their fighters, buy advanced weaponry, and defy any international pressure to lay down their arms. This financial independence means that peace negotiations often fail. The leaders of the armed groups have little incentive to agree to a peace deal that would require them to give up control of the gold mines and other economic assets. For them, war is a business, and peace is bad for business. They can continue fighting for years, enriching themselves while the country collapses around them. The endless supply of money from gold creates a vicious cycle. The more gold they sell, the more weapons they can buy, and the longer they can prolong the conflict, which in turn allows them to maintain control over the gold mines. The involvement of external actors also makes the conflict harder to resolve. Countries and groups that benefit from the chaos, whether through access to gold or by gaining strategic influence, have little interest in a stable and democratic Sudan. The UAE's role as the primary market for the gold and Russia's support for the RSF through the Wagner group provide the paramilitary force with both the financial means and the political cover to continue its campaign. These international connections undermine efforts by other nations and organizations that are trying to broker peace, as the warring parties feel they have powerful allies they can count on. Ultimately, the war persists because the systems that are supposed to prevent such tragedies are failing. International sanctions are not being enforced effectively, and the global supply chains for minerals like gold lack transparency. This allows conflict resources to flow freely into legitimate markets, rewarding violence and brutality. Until the financial pipeline that fuels the war is cut off, any calls for peace will fall on deaf ears. The fighting will only stop when it is no longer profitable, and when the leaders responsible for the violence are held accountable for their actions on the world stage. Breaking the devastating cycle of violence in Sudan requires a united and determined effort, both from within the country and from the international community. The first and most critical step is to cut off the money supply that fuels the war. This means putting real pressure on global gold hubs like the UAE to enforce strict regulations and ensure that no conflict gold enters their markets. Countries like Switzerland must also demand full transparency from their suppliers and refuse to buy gold that cannot be traced back to a conflict-free mine. Making blood gold worthless on the global market would remove the main incentive for the fighting. Alongside financial pressure, there must be a renewed push for international accountability. The leaders of the SAF and RSF, as well as any foreign actors supporting them, must be held responsible for the war crimes and human rights abuses being committed. This could involve targeted sanctions, travel bans, and asset freezes against individuals and entities profiting from the conflict. The International Criminal Court and other judicial bodies should be empowered to investigate and prosecute those responsible. Justice for the victims is not only a moral imperative, but also a crucial component of building a lasting peace. Ultimately, the future of Sudan must be decided by the Sudanese people themselves. The international community's role should be to support civilian-led initiatives that aim to build a democratic and inclusive government. Local peace builders, community leaders, and civil society organizations are working tirelessly on the ground to provide aid, document abuses, and pave the way for a post-war Sudan. These groups need financial and political support to amplify their voices and ensure that any future government is accountable to its citizens, not to warlords or foreign interests. For Sudan to heal, its natural wealth must be transformed from a curse back into a blessing. This requires establishing a transparent and fair system for managing the country's resources, where the profits from gold and other minerals are used to rebuild the nation and invest in its people. This is a long and difficult road, but it is the only path to a future where Sudanese children can go to school instead of to the mines, and where families can live in peace without the fear of violence. The world owes it to the people of Sudan to help them reclaim their country and their hope.